Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to Out of the Park Baseball. This is episode number 20. We are now in the off season between seasons 3 and 4. And of course, this is going to be our first year in the second tier, moving up to the championship. So the first thing that stands out, other than a totally revamped coaching staff, I've replaced about 2/3 to maybe even 3/4 of our staff, including the major league level. Finally, we did have a few okay top end coaches, but they weren't great. We've got a pretty good staff now, pretty good. But anyway, here is our new budget, starting with the finances, because of course that is huge. We had to build a team on a very tight budget over the last few seasons, and yeah, it turns out that over the last two we managed it ridiculously well. We had a lot of money in reserve and did quite well in that department, and head into this season in really good financial shape already. And now our situation just got better. We're going to see an increase of 20 million in our budget, up to 146 million, and that allows for a team payroll of roughly 90 million. Our payroll at the end of the season was 26 million. Arbitration is looking to increase that by about 3 to 4 million. So 30 million, meaning we have a good 60 million to play with. Now, I don't want to spend all 60 million of that suddenly. I want to get a stable team in the second tier as a first priority. I want to retool our farm system that we gutted to get us to the second tier as a short-term priority. None of that includes throwing the book at anyone and everyone and overpaying and becoming the New York Yankees. Not our strategy. So, but there is money to play with, and that does mean at least one larger contract could come in play. More realistically, a handful of mid-level contracts, those 10 million types for really, really solid all-star caliber type players, but not superstars. That's the direction I'm thinking of heading with that at the moment. New staff, here they are. There are some known quantities out there. Alan Trammell, for example, is our single A manager. That's where he's ended up, and you can see just how strong his ratings are. Managed the Tigers up until 2005. John Farrell, who we picked up last season to manage the rookie team, as that was the only vacancy we had, has now been promoted to our AAA manager. But he managed the Red Sox through the teens. But on the major league level, I've gone for the best options regardless of reputation. You can see across the board there actually isn't a ton of reputation. There's actually a couple really young, inexperienced managers coming in, or coaches coming in to complement our staff, because they're the best, period. I don't care about the reputation factor. So in arbitration, I only had two players. It was Talton, the reliever, who missed most of the season. He was injured pretty early on and has just recovered from that now in November. And then Jose Rivera, who was playing at shortstop, mostly as the defensive guy, but he actually ended up having a really solid season. Between the two of them, do a $3 million increase on what their salaries were. But it turns out we also have two Super Twos, for those who aren't familiar with that. Essentially, if you are in between 2 years and 3 years of experience, there is a category where you are statistically better than everybody else in your comparison, in your category, in your range of service. Those better players qualify as Super Twos, which then become eligible for arbitration, meaning you were good enough, you have earned yourself a pay raise. And so Trevor Richards is one. We'll go ahead and throw in a figure so at least we have something qualifying. And then Luke Williams, who has done quite well for himself. Trevor Richards, 58 innings, 3.72. I mean, he's been a pretty solid 38 saves. That's our closer. But Luke Williams has done pretty solidly at third base. He's not the greatest or anything. He hit 268 this past season. 333 on the on base, just 8 homers, just 48 RBI. Nothing huge in terms of numbers. In fact, one of the objectives for this season is to upgrade third base. But Luke Williams has been a good servant, and I would imagine he has earned himself, at least a decent amount like this. All right, so offers in place for those guys, and we will get on with it. Appears that that's going to add another 3 million or so, but again, we have some room, and I've already re-signed all of the expiring minor league contracts with one exception. 29-year-old AAA backup catcher who was pretty dang bad. Pretty bad, and he got quite a few at bats, 500 of them. Minus 6.3, wins above replacement. Yeah, not good. We'll let that one go. I don't think he has much trade value for us, but I really don't like allowing expiring contracts to walk away because you get nothing for that. I want to get something in return for players. I want everything. I see value in everything, and I want to cash in on that value. As the off season is just getting started, what you have is you kind of already have the announcement of outgoing players, but you really don't have any announcements of incoming players just yet. So in terms of the wins above replacement gains, we're looking at only 3 teams with a positive number so far. Quite a few zeros, which of course we are one of those, but you do see a number of players lost. The Reds, the A's in particular, losing quite a few players to free agency, probably because they're not going to be able to afford what they had. They're going to have a smaller salary than what they had. So A's, Reds, we got to keep an eye out for them, because what we've seen is the yo-yo effect, where teams coming down are too good for the level, and there's a pretty big jump from this level to the proper major leagues. Miami coming in at 0, though, is that third team. So where we stand as the free agency has begun is that we are now 13th in budget. So we're right in the middle of this league after that 20 million increase. You would think if we do stabilize, it's going to continue to go up, as we have an excellent owner in Nike's Phil Knight. 146 million, is good, but in terms of the payroll, even though we are down in 28th at this moment, apparently on 70 million. So not sure how we have suddenly jumped from 26 to 70 million. Has that become some sort of massive pay raise for all the players because we got promoted? I'm not sure what the case is on that one. But anyway, money for free agents sits on 17 million. Money for extensions at 11.5. So just 17 million means we can't really get into the best guys, because looking at what's here at the top end, kind of look at that and say maybe Matsuda might be kind of the best option. Great gap power, really strong home run power. I mean, very much major league level talent, but asking for a lot. This is one of Cincinnati's expiring, and you could see why they have had to let him go. They can't afford to keep their star player. Left field is our big issue, and actually it looks like left field is kind of the right place for him to be. So he would be an excellent fit, but I just don't think we can pay. But I need to check my finances and see what's going on with why we suddenly have such a high payroll. Okay. So apparently I just can't add because everything seems to be on par with where we were. Hudson, with his increase of 3 million, not quite 4 million this year. Some other regular increases are a couple arbitration guys, but standard stuff. I mean, really standard stuff. So, yeah. Actually, really just a small increase. I was just wrong on my number in my head. It was in the 60s, and it's going to push to 70 million this year, but it's still room to play. Willie LeBoy, the highest paid player, not even earning that much. Hudson's great on his value, and we've got those guys under control for a little while. LeBoy is somebody maybe we move on at some point, but you got our DH and our second baseman. Nebel Nebel's somebody who might be trade bait if we need to cut some cash, as he's making a little bit more than you'd want him to, though he was fantastic in the bullpen. But he's also, I think, our only player other than Richards that is over 30. John King now has reached 30. Luke Raley has reached 30, but the youth movement we made remains, even though a couple guys are now, a couple of years on from where they were. But yeah, we're still in good financial situation, just not quite as much money to play as I thought we had. Arbitration rulings for Talton, team offer. So we've won that one in Luke Williams' case. Hearing was canceled, so we actually offered him a little more, apparently, than what he was even asking. Jose Rivera. Okay, he won that one. $7.5 million, though, still affordable. Just an extra $1.5 million on top. Trevor Richards, same thing. We actually ended up offering him more than what the arbitration would have resulted in. So we won one, lost one. So with a limited amount to play with, and of course we're at a higher level where our ratings have kind of dropped off for a number of players. Not significantly. There's not a huge gap between second and third tier. But we've definitely dropped off a little bit in comparison to where we were. Anyway, what I'm looking at free agents is players under the age of 28. We don't want to sign players. We're not in that win now, kind of get the veteran who's about to fall off sort of position. I also don't want to be signing players that are fragile, so that's something we're trying to avoid. But there's a number of international free agents that just enter the free agency pool. So Matsuda's great prospect, but at $30 million we can't afford him. Same with McKinney at 28. But we are looking at like Suntak Sol, lefty for one thing, 2.5 current, but 3.5 potential and durable, and just $6 million for that right fielder. He would be probably a great addition. Has a ton of power. Might be able to play left field, where Seth Beer is somebody who we're very much in need of an upgrade on. Erlano, I'm scouting, but I don't think we'll be signing him if his demand is $29 million. The others are affordable. Iwata, Kim, both very affordable, especially Kim. Not great right now, not the greatest potential, but he's got value in a trade, especially if you can sign him for a pretty low amount. But we've got to see if he's actually worth that, as our scouting accuracy is pretty low. Mountcastle is somebody that's a definite possibility, as he's 3-star current and only asking $7 million. Pretty affordable for a proper regular starter. One thing that I've managed to do here is I've just picked up 8 free agents on low current with at least some potential ability, the 1.5-star, 2-star kind of range, just to give us a little more depth to that minor league system, refill a few of those holes, and make more trade pieces for future moves. Coming up on the end of the calendar year, I think I've concluded my free agency moves. It's taken a month and a half to kind of go through, but I've picked up probably a dozen minor league additions, guys that are 2-star potential or 1.5 current, maybe a 2-star current. Not massive additions by any stretch of the imagination, but adding a dozen players to a minor league system that was fairly well gutted. So that's a big plus, and I had already told you about 8 of those. So we've added an additional 4, but also I've added in 2 of those international prospects, guys that were 2 to 2.5 current with 3-star potential, so they're close to major league ready. They each took minor league deals with major league options on those. So if they make the major league roster, they're already guaranteed a specific salary. In one case, it was $4 million. That was the 2 to 3 guy. The 2.5 to 3 guy is $7 million. So there is some money involved in those, but on minor league deals and not yet ready anyway, they become good additions to the roster and certainly fairly valuable trade pieces, and both young. So ultimately, we've had a quiet off season so far. I've made one trade, taking Steve Peeler, who was our end of the bench weakest player on the 40-man roster. He was a 1.5 kind of guy. He had a 0.1 on the wins above replacement, but he, along with a AAA reliever who was on our 40-man roster, we took those two and traded them away for a... Oh gosh, what did we get back on that one? I'm trying to remember what I ultimately accepted. I think we took a prospect, minor league prospect, that was a current 2, potential 2.5 outfielder, left fielder maybe. Nothing fantastic, but we got rid of 2 of those poor contracts that we had and just freed up a little more space, get us started. But there will be some deals coming, now that we've added in 14, 15 minor leaguers. We've got some room to make at least a few moves, and I've made the decision that if we're to make 3 moves for the major league roster, here's the 3 that I would like to see: an upgrade at first, third, and left. Everything else is actually looking fairly good. Even the starting rotation, the bullpen, pitching staff is fairly good, though they weren't as dominant as our hitting was last year. They are well-rounded. But in terms of that lineup, I think there's 3 holes to fill. I doubt we're going to fill all 3, but if we could fill one of those 3, or maybe 2 of those 3 with pretty solid upgrades, then I'd actually say we're in good shape this season. Based on what I'm seeing, 2 things are happening. One, it's not that big of a step from third tier to second tier, so I think we're not only going to be comfortable, but I think we're going to be on the upper end of things as we're looking at player comparisons. And outside of those 3 positions, our team actually ranks pretty dang high at a lot of spots. Not necessarily number 1 anywhere, though. So, there is a step up, but it's not major. And 2, as we typically see, these teams are on budgetary constraints, and so they tend to lose more each season than they gain. New Orleans, minus 7.1. Oakland, Cincinnati, all well down, but of course they're stepping from a very different level. Looks like Miami might be in a good position to bounce back pretty quickly, but only a few teams really have made gains. And we know where we tend to make gains. It's through trades, and it's through waiver acquisitions, and the draft. And we drafted well again last year, though it wasn't as deep. But the trades part coming soon, and then the waiver part, spring training. Only a week into January, but moves have definitely been made over the last few weeks. I've essentially taken the bottom 6 or so of our 40-man roster. They're gone. I've taken probably 3 out of our top 6 prospects, AAA, AA prospects, and they are gone too. But what we've gotten back in return is roughly 3 players at the end of this thing. One of those is Abraham Toro, 3-star third baseman, 55, 55, 55. Not the greatest defender, but we weren't very good at defense already at third base. Coming from Oakland. He only hit 239 at the major league level a year ago, but for us, that's pretty solid. And right now I have 3 third basemen. I still want to flip at least 2 of those to get 1 quality player back, and then the other can be the backup. One of those other moves has been also for a third baseman, and that's Kai Boom. Kai Boom, 2.5, but he's right on the edge of 3. His eye is a 70, contact 50, power 55, and again, defense, so at 45. So probably take those couple guys and now turn that into 1 more. But the biggest move of all, and this is the one that took the 3 minor leaguers and a couple of those guys off the major league roster, and including one best reliever on the roster, Corey Nebel, 4.5, 33 years of age. He was great for us, but we can replace those through the waiver wire. But what we got in return was Jesse Winker. Left field or first baseman, but 5-star. Defense is not great. Maybe would want to have him as a DH type, making $18 million, so that's on the high end. But 70 contact, 60 power, 70 eye, fantastic middle of the lineup hitter for us. We had to throw the kitchen sink at that one to get it to go through, but we did. We got it to go through, and we have some intriguing prospects along the way. I think the one position that now strongly needs attention. Part of that deal also on what made that happen was Dan Stevens, and we flipped guys to get Dan Stevens in return. He was on the edge of 2.5 to 3 stars as a first baseman. You can see he's got high power, good eye, but making $12 million. It didn't take us a lot to get him, and it was kind of one of those flip up, and then flip up, and ultimately got us to Jesse Winker. Took a lot to make those moves, but here we are. Now, definitely one strong improvement to the lineup. One weakness now to the lineup that definitely still needs to be addressed, but we are getting close to an opening day roster. Getting close. Still some moves to happen. Waiver wire, really looking forward to actually having access to the waiver wire this year, as we are now in that second tier, and you start getting those major leaguers coming down that are easy to pick up from our level, and we can definitely see some natural upgrades happening organically through that, which makes me think we'll be pretty active on the waiver/trade network this season. That is going to do it for this episode, though. I'm going to try to push on forward quite a ways. A little more wheeling and dealing to happen, but not a ton. We made the main move for this year, and I don't see what else there is. We do have some quality at some positions. We've made a slight upgrade at one of the 3 we wanted. We've made a huge upgrade at one of the 3 we wanted. We downgraded the other one, so that's the one that still needs to be addressed. Excuse me. But otherwise, things are good to go. And like I said, we did pick up a lot of minor leaguers, which we've already now flipped some additional pieces. We added in a couple pretty top prospects to replace a few of the ones we sent on our way. So, it's all good. I'm a Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.